let our teachers do what they're already doing. They are assessing their students. And several of the teachers who teach the higher level courses, like the AP courses, indicated that this was really what they do. We are testing these kids all the way along. So they know at the end of the 6 weeks what they need to go back and maybe review again before they start something new. So they all agreed when we got down to the bitter end, this was what they wanted. And what they indicated was by the vote was 22 in favor of no exam, with each of the 6 weeks being counted as 33 1/3%, and one voted no. And one of the teachers brought up something, and I made a note of it here, and it kind of made you stop and think. She said, when you prepare for semester exams, you lose valuable instructional time. She said, we have to prepare a study guide and give it out to the students. They have to have that 5 days before the exam. They have to work on that study guide. And then you've got to make sure that they have the correct answers, so they know that they're studying correct information. So she said, then you've got those 5 days in, and the next week you have the test. So you have lost about a week or a week and a half of instructional time that could be spent moving forward into more in-depth information prior to the end of the first semester. So I thought that was quite enlightening. And even the students that were there spoke up and talked about the fact that if they take AP, they are taking exams all the time, because that's how those teachers prepare them for those AP exams.
They also talked about different types of assessments,
Yes.
portfolios, presentations. The teacher said a lot of times we can adjust and do those instead of just an exam on a day. Take, wow, we work so hard and we set this day that everybody's taking a test. And so it was really a good discussion, I thought.
Well, and I think too, as long as they are taking the PSAT or the SAT, they are actually taking a final exam.
Yes.
And Career Center.
The Tech Center takes their CTE completer tests.
Yeah, the CTE groups, all of those students who are seniors, especially the seniors, sometimes they'll include juniors, but they will take the knock-in as soon as they finish their 4 courses in CTE. So they take that. All along in a lot of those classes, those CTE classes, they have to take OSHA.
Mm-hmm.
So there's another exam. And then we, at all of the high schools in the county, every freshman takes the PSAT, and they take this, 10th graders take PSAT 10, and then we have our juniors with the school day SAT. So they really felt like we were doing lots with our students to assess their
And dual
knowledge.
credit too.
And yes, the dual credit, they take their exams at the college there. So that was their proposal. So the last thing that you have there is what that proposal looks like in writing and how it would impact. So obviously the first thing that had to be changed in there, and you will see what was added on the first page under grading, that numerical grades shall be printed on report cards for grading periods. The semester average will be a letter grade based on the calculation of the numerical grades for each 6 weeks grading period. So that needed to be added there to clean up that verbiage. We made that change.
And the changes to that were sent to all the committee members.
Yes,
And they reviewed it,
yes.
okayed it, so we were all on the same page. We didn't add anything or take anything away. So this was the final.
And what was the decision about rounding up?
That's what I was going to ask.
They did not really talk about that. They weren't as concerned about that. They didn't care whether they rounded up.
Oh, and 89 point,
89.5 could be a 90, and they were fine with that.
they were okay with that?
I believe there was a lot of
The theme
discussion on
is
teaching
autonomy and passion.
I'm sorry.
He's on the committee.
Well, technically,
No.
yeah, technically, no.
Well,
Sorry.
when I was still in the classroom, we have to make sure the system will do that. Because in the old days, I shouldn't say old days, it was just 3 years ago, but I would have to physically go in and put the 90. it would not round up.
We
and then it would
discussed that
shrink.
because now with live grades not being available, we're going to have to adopt something. So we know now.
But I mean, are we
What
going
we
to
need to
allow
find
that to
Yes.
round up? Is that going to be the
I
practice?
can tell you the teachers that were there felt that it should be their decision, like if they're working with a child and they've given the extra effort, they should be allowed to do that. It was like a professional decision.
Well, the teachers are the teacher of record.
Yeah.
They get to
I mean,
decide.
that was the only discussion really about that. Nobody seemed to, that it should be that teacher's decision.
How does it come out if I get 89.5, she gets 89.5, she supposedly has worked real hard, and they round her up, and I'm 89.5, I'm on for the ride, and she gets an A, or an A, and I get a B, and kids talk, well, mine was 89.5, and I got an A. Well, mine was 89.5, I got a B, you know.
These teachers are you.
Well, I think it creates,
Yeah.
it creates.
Will show up as the 9.
It'll just, if you set up the grading system that way, it'll.
Prior to, they'll
Yeah.
just be.
But that's really, really rare. Most teachers are really consistent across the board.
Okay.
And then your last page is what the actual semester exam looks like. You see the strikeouts there, and it just gives the verbiage that's about the next semester exams. And, the semester grade will be the average of each of the 6 weeks weighted as 33 and 1/3%.
Does this mean we change the calendar now? We don't have to have second semester start January 1. We could actually move, we can start later.
Yeah, we can do that.
Is it too late to change?
Starting like
Well, our
college.
current, next year's calendar was state approved.
Change it now.
You know, we were state approved.
So for 26, 27.
I was just wondering, we can't amend it? I'm just asking.
You still have dual credits though. You still have the college classes. That's the.
So you mentioned, we talked about live grades going away. What type of system, have you talked about what type of system is going to be in
We've
place yet?
only talked
replace
about Schoology has a grading system already built in,
Wait, I
and
lost
we
that
was
word.
2.0,
Why is live grades going away?
because the state is no longer, the state took that over from CityNet. They purchased the rights to it. And 29 counties was using live grades. So at our last superintendent's meeting, they said they can no longer, they can't. It's so antiquated, they can't, it was built by somebody else. So they said it is gone, don't try to buy it, we're not selling it, it is just gone. So they told us at that point we needed to, and they recommended the grading system that is in the new 2.0. And we have Justin Kuiper in there looking at that, playing with it to see if that's an option.
And overall, Schoology runs pretty well.
In Schoology, I've spoke with a lady, she's one of our association reps that come in, she came to us from Putnam County. And I know Doddridge, they use Schoology as their grading system.
You
So,
can put attendance in there too.
And
yeah, so that may be, since we have that available, to
So you can
expand
set
that.
it up that way.
you know, whatever we accept what they've done, which we should, because your committee, they put the time, the effort into it. I still think, though, the option ought to be that we look at this, revisit this a year from now to see how it worked. Did it work out well? And if it did, then we continue. And if it doesn't, you know, like everything else, you might have to tweak it a little bit, to, you know.
I think that's the beauty of guidelines
Right.
now. We have our policies set that follow code, and guidelines can be more fluid and flexible.
So I've been on the board for 12 years, and I don't know how many times we've
Change this
visited
policy.
exams,
Yeah.
grading policies,
Rounding out.
and it
I
just
think
kept,
that comment was made the night of the meeting.
I mean, it just keeps,
We've been around a long
it's
time.
been around a while.
Well, in 44 years, this is the best exam policy I have ever seen.
Wow, I'm so good.
Good, very good.
We can leave off the mic.
I like it. Got it like I like it.
The only other thing I have, I think
Yeah, we're-
Mr. Lopez said he didn't have much of an update.
Yeah, we're not a whole
Yeah,
lot,
trying to
other
get
than,
finished.
we've been in strong negotiations with
Mother Nature. We've taken a pause for a day or two. It's been one of those winters. You know, I applaud our maintenance department for the work that they're doing. And also the transportation department, everybody goes out in the mornings to help advise the superintendent of the recommendation for school delays and this type of thing. We have hit a little bit of a problem, you've probably seen it. There's a shortage of salt as far as the supply. We get that from JF Allen. They also have the state contract, and they have to make sure they fulfill the state contract before they can give it to any other entities. So we have, we're down to pretty much not a lot. So if you hear any concerns about the sidewalks, we'll take care of those, but really the parking lots are the concern. Our maintenance department does all that in-house, which really does save the money, a lot of money for the county, rather than contracting it out. But we just hit that glitch with the shortage of salt. So as soon as we get it, and we have bad weather, we don't really skimp. We try to, we try to be reasonable about it. But those areas in the parking lots can be very slick, so I strongly advise all staff to be very careful on these winter
We've
months.
had a lot of ice.
The only other thing, our building projects are going along well. We should be under roof at we're probably at the end of March. That will, and it's still substantial completion date is June 30th, so there won't be a problem getting those students in and the move made. The Norwood School was sold for $265,000. The person that purchased it pays the 10% buyer's premium. Don't know the plans for the facility. The name of the person is still confidential. We're setting up a closing date. I'll advise the superintendent as soon as we get that. And I do want to applaud the board for working so well with the city of Stonewood throughout this process and exhausting every avenue through the way so that, the community had some input into, the several schools. So,
We want to thank the city of Stonewood for working with us.
absolutely. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Now I have a question in regard to the buildings that are going to empty, we're talking Adams, or Northview, Washington, Irving, all those schools. Can that be prearranged so that as soon as they are empty, that if we're going to sell them, they could go on the market immediately before, because the longer you let them sit, the more damage, and I think that, people bringing it into them at night and stuff of that nature would occur, and it be ready to go on the block and as quick as possible. Have your people look at it, get an idea what's going on, and maybe get ready to get the advertisements and everything ready so that, like I said, you close the doors and it's over in that regard, that it be put on the market, sold, whatever we're going to do.
I think, realistically, I think as we make that move, I think sometime within the first semester of next school year, that we should be able to get that prepared. There'll still be a lot of items in there. And there'll be items that we'll have to inventory, try to get them out to the schools. There'll be a lot of stuff. So we want to do that, and then after we exhaust that, then we can work with like the auction company. If we can sell those items through the auction, they also help inventory, whatever the board desires, and then we can get those buildings sold. I think a realistic timeline would be November, September, November. I mean, I think that's realistic. It might be pushing it. Would like to get it quicker, but I think, there's a lot of things in there that are valuable, and we don't have the storage. That's one thing. But if we can get rid of those before, the hard winter, that would save a lot of utility expense.
Well, we're really working hard to not move things unnecessarily, trying to use what's in those buildings. So, it's been very thought through on what we're moving and what we're taking. A lot of visits to the schools, pictures, taking of things. I actually talked to Mr. Gibson today. He's got a great idea, at the warehouse, like there's extra kitchen equipment, like the large metal pans that fit down. So they're $100 a piece. We've never had extra ones of those. So he's going to set up an inventory and have it at the warehouse. So when a kitchen needs extra pans, and I think that was phenomenal. He said there's going to be quite a bit of that stuff that he'd like to inventory and get where it needs to go. So there's a lot of work behind the scenes happening. We've had multiple meetings with Chad and Jimmy and finance and everything on top of all the personnel to try to make this move, smooth. The administrators have done a wonderful job of working to get the staffs together. I think Liberty and RCB had a dance on a Friday night and brought the kids together. So there's just a lot of that stuff that's happening naturally. And I think now that we've got people in place and we have a direction, I'm seeing a lot of good things like that. So, but it's a lot to get that all moving, but there's a lot of moving pieces, but a lot of people working hard to make that happen. So appreciate all that.
Mr. Devon, just want to mention one thing back up, just for a second about, like yesterday morning, I know people will complain because of school being called off, but what they see is the expressway out here, or, so as clear as it is. You have to get there. I know I was on the road yesterday at 9:30 or so, and it was absolutely terrible. Just from Lumberport across to get into 19 and 20. And all of those back roads are that way. You could have delayed school 6 hours and you wouldn't have got it in there. So, as Mr. Lopez and Mrs. Stutler,
We have a lot of early morning conversations.
Either 4:30, 5:30, 6:30.
If he calls me, usually I tell him, and he'll tell me he's had a drive around our way, but anytime I look out my window, it's not good, so I have to take some other opinions, but you just never know. We really try to think of the staff, you want the staff out as well, so we do the best we can.
Honestly, yesterday morning really was probably one, as far as being slick. There wasn't a lot of snow, it was probably the slickest morning we've had.
because the wind and the cold was blowing is what it was across the road. They couldn't keep up with it.
And those delays, and Nora or superintendent knows, if you're gonna have a 2-hour delay, you have to make your decision by 7. The road's still bad. If you're gonna have a 3-hour delay, you have to make it by 8, or a little after. So, but by the time you meet those timelines, the buses getting on the road and also the service personnel getting into the school, so it's a,
Team effort.
it really is, and we really do kind of labor over it for a long period of time. So we'd like to make the right decision every time, but even when you do, it's tough, and it's perspective. If you live close to the 4-lane, you live close to Route 19, looked pretty good. Route 19 was great. It was all the other roads.
Right, to get to there. And of course, it all started back years ago, whenever there was a lawsuit over something, and then you have to look at it really close. Yeah.
We have a UTC update.
Okay, the meeting went rather quick the end of that day due to the fact that the president, he was out sick with the flu, and a couple of the people could not be there, other pressing things that had to be taken care of. We had enough for a quorum, and John Taylor from Taylor County, who's the vice president, ran the meeting, and he did a nice job and all. But one thing was that the Career Center asked for our calendar. I know they can go online and get it and everything quickly, but he asked if he could get a copy, because the other 2 counties said they'd already.
I sent it to Mr. Call.
Okay, so anyway, they had already sent their copy to them, so he could build his, but he said he really builds his calendar off of Harrison County's calendar. He looks at the others and sees where they're at. And as you say, we sponsor 80% of the career center, so it's enormous. So also, he had a teacher, a math teacher, who has announced his retirement at the end of the year. So we had to vote on accepting that math teacher's, retirement. He also got concerned, and right now, due to I gotta guess, whatever the state's gonna do and everything in regard to funds, there could be a possibility of some people getting ripped at the career center, but he can't settle on an exact amount yet.
We're
He said-
actually got a meeting.
He's got a meeting set up,
tomorrow to
okay,
talk about it.
what he's going to be able to do. He has to, get the okay if things come down as to what he can and cannot do. He told us what he thought, wasn't sure that could be done in my own mind. But anyway, he has some extra funds that he would like to be able to use it that way, if possible, if he's allowed. If not, then he'll have to go, the
He's
plan
talking
B.
about the adult program.
Most of them dealt with,
Are they
Help
federally
in-
funded, is that why?
It's the state CTE funding, they're wanting to move it to the community colleges. They're wanting to take it out of the technical schools and put it to like Pierpont and the community colleges. So all that funding, he was kind of told about that a couple months ago, but it looks like that's the direction our state CTE department is going. And that's huge. It's about 12 staff members at the technical center.
Yeah.
So we're under a guideline, they fall under the same personnel guidelines, so that's why we're meeting tomorrow to look. We may have to go ahead and do the transfers, and then if it doesn't happen, we're not, we just don't know yet. It's-
we'll have an update on the next.
He's got one
the
math
next
teacher
meeting.
retiring that he's not going to.
Yeah, he's the one math teacher's not going to.
That's major. To
If
the
you don't have a
technical.
CTE program at that level, you're not going to have it. Community college, you won't need it.
It's all the adult programming.
Yeah.
That they do a lot of.
Anyway, I didn't say how many and what people or whatever, simply because we'll have to wait till there's a final decision made. And then we'll let you know what areas are going to be affected. And it might not be pretty if it follows
Do you have
along the way
anybody
it was. And
They're UTC, I mean, they're Harrison County.
I meant-
We
Federal.
enrollment was standing at 378, but he just took in a student from another county, so just moved into the area, so basically it should be at 379. And most of the time when we're losing people at the career center, it's usually in the adult program. They just get to a point that they don't come, so.
The only thing that we've heard about our federal fund is just looking at it at a 10%, take 10% off of what we normally would have. That's what they're telling us now to look at, just go 10%.
And that's all I got.
So that's where we are with that. And all the conversations with Lori. The only other thing is the budget and personnel hearing that we had to move from tonight. We'd like to move that to March the 4th at 4, just making the same personnel budget. Since we moved it because of the personnel hearing, if that's possible.
Say March.
Yeah, it's that first, the March 4th. Yes, that's the one.
I think problem on my
It
end.
might work, it might be.
No, I don't think it will be.
What day is March 4th?
March 4th at 4.
It's just Tuesday, it's a regular meeting, that was. We changed some things. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Brings us down to consent items. Is there a motion to accept consent items as presented?
I make a motion, we accept consent items as presented.
Is there a second?
So moved.
Any discussion on consent items? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. New business, add national board certification to the fiscal year 2025 salary supplement schedule. Recommended adding the previously approved annual salary supplement of $4,000 to the professional supplement schedule for the fiscal year 2025 for all teachers, counselors, school nurses, school psychologists, and speech therapists who hold a valid national board certification.
Only ones that hold the national
That's
certification.
just correct. Yeah, it's not part of our supplement. You will see a request in the new budget when we start talking about budgets for increases in supplements from other folks, so we'll present that in the budget meeting. This is what they currently get. This is just putting it in the salary schedule. But for some reason, it's not in there.
We're only going to act on this one tonight.
Yeah, it's,
We're not going to wait for the others.
This was just missing.
this was missing out of the supplement book, you know, your book that has all the, that's part of the budget.
Mrs. Kynes cleaned it up.
Yes, we've been cleaning that up
Oh,
to get the supplements correct.
So we just have to put it in.
So that's really what they're doing this year. The budget stuff's yet to come. Exciting.
Yeah, we got a couple more months for that.
And we have had some requests, so we'll share those.
Is 4 o'clock going to be early enough for all this?
This is the beginning.
We're just
This
doing
is
the personnel
beginning.
part.
Yeah, the
It's just
personnel will be the,
Not budget.
and state aid discussion. Yes.
Yeah, we're on the national board certified
Yes.
salary supplement schedule for the moment. So is there a motion to approve
I
the?
make a motion, we approve the national board certification salary supplement schedule. Be added.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, Ice Pack Day discussion. So I asked the superintendent to put this on the agenda. And the reason I asked the superintendent to put this on the agenda is because I've had some discussions with some community members. And not that there isn't anything done on days where ice packs are needed, but my thought is with the technology that we have and with the availability of the technology that we have, is there a possibility that we could make our ice pack days more rigorous? And I'll tell you what hit me hard on this one was when a community member asked me, did we not learn anything from COVID? And my response was, I don't think we did. So I would like us to. I would like to see if it's a possibility, if we could learn from COVID and the possibility of engaging with our students in a different manner on ice days.
Well, at first, can we have an explanation as to what they do now?
That's a good question. Yes.
We can talk about that. Usually in October, we make sure that there are lessons put together for the kids, so when we have an ice pack day, and we've used more this year than general, and usually the elementary, it's usually a packet. It's skill-based on any of the content standards that they have. You can talk a little bit more about that. I mean, that's the directive.
Something they can do at home where they don't have to have certain things with them. They wouldn't have to have the book, they didn't know the day before. It's gonna be reinforcement, which is third grade, how many times tables and math. That it would just be whatever would be skill related that a parent could do, or a guardian, or the daycare where they are.
So there's no interaction with the teacher.
Correct. It is, yes.
More along the lines of middle school. What about middle school and high school?
Middle school and high school run along the same way. They just use those days as reinforcement ability skills that they previously addressed, that they kind of figured could be November, December, so they can pretty well gauge where they're going to be at that time. And they can review those skills in all of those different classes.
That's usually
Well,
Schoology, could be Schoology or paper
Yeah,
packet.
they can have different.
Yeah, and I would have my students, it would be on Schoology, but I made them download it onto their iPad, so they didn't need internet.
Yeah.
So they had it.
Understood.
Yes, ma'am. What about the situation with children where their parents are not at home? And sometimes, unfortunately, the parents can't help them because they don't understand the situation. So we can make it as rigorous as we want to make it. That doesn't mean that they're going to be able to get it done and get it done correctly. I know that I sat with my grandchildren on the ice packet days, and I know Miss Kate, it took her about 2.5 hours to get all of her stuff done from one thing to the next. You know, I sat there and helped her with a little bit with what I could, and then my grandson, who's pretty short, he's in there, and it took him probably a couple hours. I watched him on his pad, going crazy typing. Papa, can you read this? And does it sound good? It amazed me. He had a couple of questions about his algebra, because he's taking advanced algebra. And so he takes it upon himself to call his teacher at the school and said, this is what I come up with. Is it correct, or do I need to go back and redo something? And so she answered these questions, and he, like I said, he finally got it all corrected, and then he had to submit it to her online, which he did, and Kate had all of her stuff ready for the next day, you know. So, like I say, we can make it, you can make it as rigorous as you want, but like I said, if the child doesn't have the help they need at home, it doesn't matter. They're not going to get it done. It's not going to be correct, and they're not going to have no idea as to what they're doing. And so that's why I say, I think we gotta hit a happy medium in there. And
I think that's why at the elementary level it's skills-based.
Yes, but teachers are still there.
Yes.
Somebody wanted
But
to
what do
call.
they do when they're, because I know everybody has to go to school. The teachers report to school 9 to 2. So what do the elementary teachers do while they're in their classroom?
They're waiting for calls to say.
Just like that?
Or emails, yes.
Okay, so they're there, available.
Yeah, and sometimes you can set up a meeting and just say, your class is open from this time, and you just leave the meeting open and they pop on whenever or call.
Usually elementary kids don't have that
Yeah.
know-how. I mean, they probably know more than we do, but they don't have that, and they don't always have their iPad with them.
Yeah.
Because we've been very
Right.
strategic that we want teachers hands-on and things in the elementary school, so they're not always coming in using an iPad. We're trying to limit that screen time, so.
Mr. Devon?
Yes, sir.
So, they've done the pack on both levels there. What occurs from what they've done now?
Tell me what happens when it goes back?
Yeah, when that, if, let's say Junior doesn't have his iPad, so he does whatever, he's responsible to turn it in. So are they getting feedback for the work that they're turning in?
Oh, it's great.
That's
It
what
should
you're
be
doing.
graded.
Well, it should be, yes. I'm saying is that,
You also know as a teacher who your children are, who nobody was there to help them. They couldn't do anything, you might have to work with them in the morning, to help them a little bit more. Or for some elementary kids, you had to read someone a story and they signed a sticky note. There was nobody there to sign their sticky note. I mean, sometimes you have to believe it, yeah, but there was nobody
so it's
there.
kind of like that 89.5 and going up to
You just
the
have to use
90
your professional
or
judgment.
the 80. Yeah.
So
Know your students.
I guess one of the questions that I have then is from a higher level. Students that in high school or middle school, if they're doing skills-based, like the elementary schools are doing, are we able to, so one of the main concerns was the AP courses and the ability to be able to take the AP courses and get the content needed taught to the student, because we don't have control over the AP courses. We don't have control over the testing. So are they able to, what do we do for the AP courses?
For those AP courses, those AP teachers are probably, I haven't looked at some, but they are probably putting the work in the school with them, because they know what they have to do. And the kids are expected to be able to be in there and do it. So those things were there, as well as that teacher is available to answer any questions that they might have.
So why isn't that happening in all the classes?
In some cases with Schoology, okay, you're gonna have the internet. So if you live out, not every student has access to internet when we have bad weather. So that's another place where that problem comes in. Teachers are putting things into Schoology that they're working on right then. But they also don't want to introduce new material while a student is off, and they're not there to give that direct instruction to everybody at the same time, knowing full well that there are parents that don't understand what that course is about or how to help them with that project or whatever it is that we still are teaching. So they,
So how do they, like, if we're doing quadratic equations, solving quadratic equations in my math class, and the next day I have a snow day, how do I know that my skills-based is going to be directly related to quadratic equations?
You don't, because they're done in October. You don't.
Well, then see, that doesn't make, to me,
But you
That
can
doesn't
still
make
give them
sense.
stuff to do. I mean, I still had readings prepared for them in Spanish with activities. You can still build their skills even if it's not that, what you're doing on that particular day when you left.
So that's kind of why I want to bring this up, right?
Teachers do send
I'm not-
things if they think it's close enough.
I'm not saying, they don't,
Yeah,
I'm not saying they're not available, but with the technology that we have today, is there a way we can, like Mr. Hook said, bridge that gap? So that we won't have,
And the advantage of having that iPad is you can change it. I can push out something else.
Yeah.
But the law says we have to give them a paper packet by October first.
Okay.
There's where we sort of get into, especially on elementary. But elementary, we don't send that iPad home every day.
I can understand
I can
that.
understand
Yeah, that
that.
makes
In the middle school,
I think middle school.
my grandson was sitting there and the teacher sent the question. You know, I was sitting there watching him, you know, he said, and she sent the question and then he started answering the question, you know.
But one thing we did learn from COVID is that not everybody has good internet. And I had some kids that were in homes where they had internet, but there wasn't enough bandwidth because there's other kids at home. And I had some kids, when they were with their mom, they could do their work, but if it was the week they were with their dad, they had to babysit because the parents went to work and they couldn't participate. So you have to kind of take that into account too, that we may not be able to teach synchronously.
During COVID, there was 40%. That must be good.
Yeah, I don't
I don't know
expect
what
us
it
to
is
be
now.
able to teach the efficacy that we would if we were in school. I'm not, but I just, other counties have different, well, for instance, Mon County, my niece has a time where she gets online and she spends a minimum amount of time with her teacher in a live face-to-face setting. You know, other counties have hotspot adapters, or maybe Todd could help us out with that. They issue to the kids where the kids don't have internet, or could connect some.
Where they
Some
can call
kids.
the teacher if they don't have internet. I've had them do that too.
I just wanted to bring the discussion up to see if there's any way we could possibly look deeper into it, if it needs to be looked deeper into.
Well, in the words of a famous man, we could form a committee and study it.
Boy, you use that quite a bit.
Hey, but that exam committee was
We
on
were
our.
out 5 years.
That's what
Pulling
that's what I was
together
hoping to go with.
It
Yeah,
could be
so-
a good group discussion.
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna hurt to
No.
pull a committee together and discuss it.
That's right. Any ideas?
Especially for the middle school, high school. I can
Other
understand,
counties as well.
I can understand the elementary. I mean, because I sat with Emily and we did her little ice. Yeah.
Sure, sure. I understand elementary too.
They're not one by themselves.
Okay.
You have,
Right, I know.
My little grandchildren are home with their grandfather.
Oh dear.
They're great.
Okay, all right, so that would be good committee, explore that.
we can explore that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's great.
All right, this brings us down to old business, which involves another topic on snow days. We used to have a program, if you remember, the School Nutrition on Wheels program. Whenever we had snow days, we would work with local churches or local organizations that would distribute food to kids in different areas. We haven't done that, and of course, we haven't expected to do that because no one expected this snow that we had this year. But I wonder if we could maybe look into that and see if we could possibly get that up to speed.
When Mr. Gibson was down, we were talking about the inventory, we talked a little bit about that, so he's going to see if he can find any of the contacts. I know that was really big with David C. when he was here, and he had a lot of faith-based groups.
And I know the Elks,
A lot of volunteers would deliver the
Organization,
food.
right.
We had cooks that also worked in that environment, so. Yeah. But COVID was a little different,
It
because we
was.
could get food everywhere, and the FedEx did a lot of free delivery for us. But all that's kind of dried up and gone, so it would be back to a grassroots, faith, well, or any organization, volunteers or whatever, to get food out, but,
But there's still schools doing that. They're still doing it WI, aren't they, Ms. Rhodes?
well, yeah, we try to stay home.
There's different ones that are doing it on the Fridays, but of course, I know you're probably talking about the DC standards.
Yes.
3 days.
Things like that.
yeah, 3 or 4 days in a row.
Right.
Don't
I know
we
number
have,
4, they got a neat little thing that Mrs. Carvello works on, where parents and all that, they're able, they send a bag full of stuff and it's a meal, and they put them out, and a child goes by, they just, if they know that they don't have anything at home, they go by, they pick up a bag at the end of the school day, walk out, and I can honestly say, I'm over there a good bit of it, picking up my granddaughter and sitting there watching these kids do this. And they don't abuse. These kids don't abuse. It's not the same kids picking it up every day. It's variety of kids coming through that they know that they
and a lot of those are sponsored by organizations.
Yes, they are, that's community
and she's really done a nice job. I was kind of, because I didn't know what it was at first. I said, what are all those bags of, and she goes,
They did full meals at Christmas.
and the parents send them in, they take advantage of it now.
Maybe when Mr. Gibson gives more information. we can have
Yeah, I'll have him, yeah, I will,
Essentials,
yeah. I just actually covered them.
Thank you. That was all. Nothing to add, okay. All right, brings us down to supplemental insurance, whole business. We have an action item for supplemental insurance. If there is a motion to recommend the supplemental insurance offerings with bearing advisors,
I so moved.
could you, is there a second? Go ahead, Mr. Tucker.
I'm just gonna say, maybe give us a little update on here of what it is. It's been a while, I mean, since we've looked at it.
Sure. Yeah, so
No, I was gonna say they're here, but they can't. talk.
well, they are here, and to that point, what I was going to say is if anybody would like to stay afterwards and feels that they would like to have more information, 2 options. We could table it and have them present at another meeting, or we could table it and you could discuss what questions you might have with them afterwards and bring it back for action at the next meeting, if you don't feel comfortable voting in the affirmative on it now. What I would say is that, especially since we had American Fidelity here this afternoon, or this evening, discussing Mr. Bauer talking about additional options for employees that he thought we should look at, I think that the more options we give employees to choose, the better. So I'm okay with voting in the affirmative for it today, but
This is where they come into the schools and present like
yes,
these other companies.
yes, and let the employee make the decision and choose.
Yeah, they talked earlier at another
Correct.
meeting, they explained it at another meeting.
Yes, they're similar to, FICO savings. They could give FICO savings to the employee, FICO savings to the employees. They have supplemental insurances similar to Aflac that they could use. So, but we allow other companies into the school system to do that. Now, the one point I will make is that section 129, 125 is, as according to Mr. Bauer said, it is one company that's allowed to do that. Yes. So, but it's up to the board to decide what they
They
would
would
prefer.
just set up a meeting at the school, go in.
Other than employees.
But is the American Fidelity, that's mandatory, they have to use all the employees? right?
Yes, because of the
Yes,
section.
because of 125.
Okay, and then, but the very good point, this is voluntary?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They would give the option, and based on their package and their benefits, the employee would be able to determine if they wanted to go with them or not.
You know, they work with some counties,
Hmm, yeah,
other counties.
other counties, other school systems. It's at the will of the board. Call for the question.
Call for question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next, we have consent.
So,
Next, we have consent. Oh, sorry, we already did consent. Yes. Now we have no policy updates. Personnel, there are a motion to approve personnel matters as presented.
Make a motion to approve personnel matters.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on personnel matters?
the only other thing I had, and then I gotta clarify beforehand, was on volunteer coaches and how many they could have. I know we've gone over that, because I noticed on one where there was a volunteer coach asking to be put on a group, on a team, you know, and I thought, well, they already had one volunteer coach. Well, I guess they can have, you know, in high school, they can have 3 and all that there, so there was no reason for me to, you know, bring it up, so, but I just, like I said, I was a little surprised, and all, but, how many volunteer coaches, because, like I said, if you look at these schools doing football, soccer, baseball, basketball, you know, there's a lot of people on the sidelines, and I'm a volunteer coach, I'm a volunteer coach, I'm a volunteer coach, and everybody's a volunteer coach. And I think that in the coming year, that I think that it ought to be cleaned up with the athletic directors and all. You know who your volunteer coaches are for your sport, and that's all.
They should have badges. We've made them, I mean, when they are approved, they should have a badge.
Right, and I mean,
We've
and I think,
corrected a lot of that.
and I think it's the athletic director's
Yeah,
responsibility to enforce the policy. And if they don't,
correct.
then I think that,
And there should be just not at games, but at practices.
Yeah.
That's where they're probably needed more than any. I agree.
yeah, and you also see, it was on the news where the legislature are now going to come back and looks like they're going to require an ambulance at every day at practice, games.
Practice too.
Because the boy that, you know, I think lost his life was in practice, you know. I don't think it was in a game, I can't be 100% sure, I can't remember back that far. I mean, there's another expense to the, you know, the state makes these, they make these great
But don't have
moves,
anything.
it's great, but they don't provide any, money to help fund it.
Those are our favorite.
And I tell you what, they're not gonna be cheap for them to send their ambulance out there, and, you know, it used to be cheap at one time, but it's not cheap anymore for them to have their ambulance out there with their couple people sitting there watching the game, game's over, nobody's hurt, everybody's okay.
Don't have any, they're about to against the tires on the side.
Call the question.
For nothing.
No, it's exactly.
Call the question. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I'd like us to move up item, letter B in legal disciplinary matters up before our legal matters. In the termination of an employee has changed. The employee has withdrawn, has given a resignation. So we will not have to take action on the termination of the employee for this evening. But we will need to take action on the resignation. So if there's a motion to accept the resignation,
So moved.
is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, legal matters. Is there a motion to go into executive session for legal matters?
That's you, Mike.
I move pursuant to 6-9A-412 of West Virginia Code that the board go into executive session to discuss any legal matter which, by express provision of federal law or state statute or rule of court, is rendered confidential, or which is not considered a public record within the meaning of the Freedom of Information Act as set forth in Article 1, 29B-1-1, Chapter 29B of this code.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We will be in executive session. Listen, get the heck out of here.
So,
All right, is there a motion to return from executive session?
I so moved.
Serpent,
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. This brings us down to board member comments. Mr. Tucker.
I think we had a very productive meeting, listened to some folks speak, and learned a great deal tonight, I think, for our board. I appreciate that.
Okay. Sure.
I was proud of the fact that Harrison County had another national winner, and I also think that as a group, we need to send out our condolences and all to our Doors secretary, Caitlin, losing her father, who was an outstanding guy for Harrison County, works in recreation and all. And I just hope the whole entire family can get through it, weather the storm, and go, be supportive for her when she's back.
Yeah, heartfelt thanks to the committee that worked on the exam policy, and I repeat, best one I've seen in 44 years.
Ms. Smith?
Well, I'm certainly glad I brought it up at the last meeting. I definitely didn't expect the direction that it went. I appreciate all their hard work, as Ms. Santilli did say, and I look forward to see how everything works out. And I appreciate their hard work, just as echoed Ms. Dr. Santilli's accolades.
I want to take a minute and say that we're currently seeing a lot of things happening in reform in education and changes in education at the national and state level. And I think that we all need to be extremely attentive and informed about what's coming and what it is that we're going to be faced with in the next few years that will help or hinder public education on our local level. We need to be educated and proactive in looking at what is going to come out of Charleston and the national level so that we can adjust or pivot as needed. And I think that people often forget the purpose of public education, the social impact, the civic impact, the equitable, and the positive contributions to society that public education has culturally and socioeconomically. So that being said, if there's anything that you see coming out of Charleston that merits discussion, contact your representatives, have your colleagues and your friends contact your representatives and fight for public education and what we believe in and what we do. And thank you to everybody up here that does what they do for all the kids and the staff in Harrison County. It's very appreciated. All right. All those, any motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.